this is Jacqueline Scislowski from Power Rangers Beast Morphers. I'm sitting here with Elias, and this is the Man Cave Chronicles.
Welcome to another episode of the Man Cave Chronicles.
Welcome to the party, pal!
You're my boy, Blue!
Yo, Adrian!
A podcast with interviews of amazing guests from the world of pop culture.
Oh, yeah!
TV.
Nice!
Movies.
Oh, I love the movies!
Comedy and more. From deep inside the Man Cave. Your host, Elias.
Jacqueline, welcome to the cave.
Hi, thank you.
How are you? What's new with you?
Good. It's not much. Just trying to keep busy and not get bored and keep active.
Hey, how you dealing with all that going on right now?
You know, pretty good. I think it's almost worrisome how well I'm doing with it and how much I strangely am enjoying it.
There you go. You're resting, right?
Yeah, but also, you know, getting those workouts in, cooking, cleaning, drawing, all sorts of things.
So the listeners know you from Power Rangers Beast Morphers. We'll talk about that. But I want them to know a little bit more about you. Where are you originally from?
I'm actually originally from Chicago.
Oh, how was it growing up in Chicago?
It was awesome. Yeah, my whole family still lives in Chicago, and I go back to visit often. And yeah, it was a pretty awesome place to grow up. I definitely miss it sometimes.
Yeah. Were you? What were you into as a kid growing up in Chicago?
I did a lot of things. I've been acting since I was 3 years old, so that was kind of really a random kind of occurrence that I got into acting because nobody in my family is in the entertainment world whatsoever. But I also grew up just playing soccer, going to gymnastics. I was actually on a hip-hop team for about 7 years called Hip Hop Connections. And then just normal high school stuff and, you know, was always acting, kind of doing student films, moving back and forth from Chicago to LA with my mom. So all sorts of things.
What else pushed you towards the acting when you got older?
Well, when I started off kind of modeling, I did a lot of American Girl doll and like Kohl's ads. And I started getting into film around 5. When I was 5 years old, and I did student films with Columbia College in DePaul in Chicago. And honestly, those were kind of just what really solidified my passion for acting. I just remember my first student film, I was in this red onesie pajama, and we were filming in the middle of winter in Indiana, like crazy hours till 2 in the morning, and there's this me, this 5-year-old on set with all these college kids and my mom, of course, and I just remember absolutely loving everything that we were doing, and it just felt like such a magical place. And kind of since then, it just constantly grew, and the more projects I worked on, the different things I started to do, it definitely opened my eyes to this world that I cannot get enough of.
Did you take any acting classes while you were, pursuing the acting world?
Yeah, I think when I was younger, I kind of took like a variety. There wasn't really like one specific one that I took for a long time. I kind of just learned as I went, but as I started getting older and getting more serious, especially when I started coming to California, I definitely started taking more classes. And since then, I've taken so many different kinds. I've taken like Meisner courses, I've taken scene study classes, I've done all the workshops that you could think of, and I'm currently in classes right now. I just started doing Groundlings, which is an improv comedy sort of thing, so kind of making sure I have all the tools in my toolkit well developed and constantly working on them.
Out of all those classes that you took, which one do you think you enjoyed the most?
Honestly, right now, I am really loving the Groundlings because I have never actually taken a specific improv-based class. A lot of the other classes that I've taken, which one of my favorites is Dennis Lavelle. He's kind of like a second dad to me because I was in his acting class since I was about 12. So big shout out to him. But the Groundlings is really cool because it's really helping me explore like creative original characters, and I have this thing on my Instagram, the blueberry suit, and that's sort of, I guess, morphed into a character of mine that everybody seems to really enjoy. So I definitely love that class at the moment.
Do you see yourself like getting into more of improv?
I don't know if I would say I see myself getting more into it, but it's definitely something that I really enjoy. Like, I look up to Jim Carrey a lot. I love The Mask, and I always say that, if they were to remake it with a female version, I would surely love to do that. So I think it's just another aspect that I definitely would like to explore throughout my career.
So when you made your big move to LA, what was your first gig that you got out there?
I think I was 12 years old, and the first thing that I had booked was, I believe it was on the ABC or Fox. I'm not sure which channel it was on, or network, but it was called Touch, and it was with Kiefer Sutherland, and I was in the season finale of their season 1 as Amelia Robbins, I believe, and I played an autistic girl who had, kind of I think her gift was that she was able to create maps of sorts that, like, led to cool things. It was a really interesting show, and I'm sad that it ended only after 2 seasons, but it was really cool, and that was a fun project to work on.
Yeah, David Masseuse was on that. I had him on the show a couple years ago.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Did you have any scenes with Keith?
No, I did not, unfortunately. But I did see his trailer.
So now I mentioned you star on Power Rangers Beast Morphers. How did you get approached for this project, and how did you audition for it? Tell us about that.
So this was a really crazy thing because I was currently living in Chicago. I did my first 3 years of high school back in Chicago because I just wanted the sort of normal experience. But I moved out to California again for my senior year, which was 2018. And I, like, really long story short, but when I first moved out, I was at a car wash, and I met this man that my dad was talking to, who happened to be the Spider-Man stunt double, and his name is Iram Choi, and he actually he started talking about all the stunts that he's done, and I was like, wow, I've never actually explored stunts. I never even really knew much about that whole side of the industry. And so he recommended me to this place, XMA World Headquarters, who the coach of XMA World Headquarters happened to actually be my cat, the Blue Ranger, from a few seasons ago. And so I was training with him for about 6 months at this like stunt-based martial arts combat sort of facility, and he actually ended up saying that, hey, they're recasting Power Rangers again, you should go out for one of the roles. And I was like, oh, wow, yeah, cool, sounds awesome. And, I, from there, just trained. There was about, I think, 6 auditions for it. I had to create my own choreography that was, like, about a minute long. It was so crazy. I ended up, like, training 3 times a day, going to a gym just for, like, personal fitness, and then I would go to the stunt class, and then I would rehearse my choreography after that at night. And, yeah, and then this last day came for testing, and everything kind of just happened the way it did, which I'm so grateful for.
Do you think, you said you did gymnastics when you were younger, do you think that helped you with all this?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think dance and gymnastics, even the soccer, because, I happen to be, my powers are the jackrabbit powers, and so that means that my kicks are my strongest ability, which, amazing that I did soccer, coincidentally, because that just helped with, like, form, being able to know my body control and all of that sort of stuff. So definitely happy that I had those things under my belt.
Now, the show airs on Nickelodeon. For the listeners, can you tell them what the show's about?
Yeah, so the show basically is about these regular kids who kind of end up being in the position to take on these huge roles as the Power Rangers to protect their universe from the dimension of monsters. And our season particularly, I really liked that. It kind of showed three different sides. One who was already, a cadet at Grid Battle Force, and there was Devin who, was really great, had the skill at video games and combat, but didn't really know where his potential could be until he obviously became the Red Ranger and got to utilize all those skills from video games and combat. And then there was Zoey, myself, who had always trained to be a Battle Force cadet, but didn't make the final cut, but she didn't give up. She kept trying to find out ways that she could help out her community. And then when the time came, she kind of had to just conquer her fears and then was like ready to take on the Yellow Ranger. And the rest was history.
How would you describe Zoey?
I would describe Zoey as a go-getter. I think she's very determined. She's always trying to think outside the box. She can be stubborn at times, but I think it's because she always wants to make sure that she can hold her own and that she, is doing the best that she can and proving her spot as well as, being a team player. So I think I really admire her for all of her courage, and I admire her also huge heart, for caring about the environment, caring about her teammates, caring about her B spot. I mean, I definitely think she tries to put everybody else before herself, which is such a admirable thing that I hope I am the same in my life.
Actually, my next question was do you feel like you can relate to her at all?
Yeah, I definitely think that her and I are very similar in many ways. I think I kind of share the same determination, and I'm very critical of myself, so I'm always, trying to make sure I'm doing my absolute best and, trying to prove that I can do it and prove it to myself that, I'm capable of doing the things that I strive and dream and to do. I think the only difference that I kind of always say is that I wish that Zoey had a little bit more of a goofy side. I think you kind of see her sassiness, and sometimes I think, she had a joke or two, but I think that's definitely one difference between us, whereas I'm definitely a huge goofball on my weekend. So,
Is there anything you would change about your character, or would that be it right there, what you just said?
Yeah, I don't think I would really change anything. I mean, if anything, I'd love to add maybe a little bit more goofiness to her, but I mean, I think she's really unique in her own way. If anything, I think that she just had a ponytail the whole time because it's so hard to fight with your hair down.
If Zoey was a real person, would you want to be friends with her?
Oh, 100%. I would hope that we're best friends.
What do you think has been your biggest challenge you've encountered portraying and connecting with Zoey?
The biggest challenge. I think because it was so close to who I am, and we kind of really essentially were cast as, they feel like they kind of sort of tailored the roles to who we are in real life. So I feel like it was pretty natural to kind of create her. I guess maybe the only challenge was trying to distinguish the two, because you don't want to be playing yourself, because there isn't much acting stat then, and it wouldn't really always make sense. But I think that's kind of the only challenge, is making sure to make Zoey her own person, and not kind of relying on just showing up to work and being myself and kind of winging it, but really putting in the work and studying what the script says, and then kind of applying that to, okay, what does this mean about who she is, in the eyes of the writers, and how do I want to create it to be my own as well.
Do the writers ever come up to you and talk to you about your character, ask you what you think?
Yeah, they didn't really, but I think they sort of were sneaky, because they would kind of stop by set, they would talk to us occasionally, just casual conversation, but then you would notice later on in episodes there were certain things that they would write for our characters that definitely were nods to who we are. I know there was a few more lines that showed up about food, with Zoey because I'm such a huge foodie, and I was like, I think they did this on purpose. It's just awesome.
That's awesome. Do you have a favorite scene that you've been in?
Ooh, I mean, I don't know about favorite specific scene, but actually, one of my favorite scenes is when Rory and Jazz and we did this thing the day we were announced at Morphicon where we made up this random handshake, and I kept having that handshake in the back of my mind, wanting to make sure that I got into the show at some point. And I believe it was like the season finale of season 1 where not only was it the three of us, but even Abraham and Steele, they got to join in on the handshake, and we did it as a team, and it was right before we went to go fight Evox, so that was definitely such a cool and special moment to me.
Mm-hmm. How would you describe the chemistry on set with you guys?
Honestly, we got so lucky. I mean, since the moment we had all gotten on the plane, some of us, I was actually it was random that myself and Rory had actually met like 7 years ago when we were 12 when I was 12 in an acting class. But I hadn't seen him ever since, so it's kind of a little reunion. But everybody else, that was our first time meeting, and we instantly became a family. I mean, we did everything together. We always tried to, have dinners together, go out together, travel together. It was definitely such a tight-knit group, and that was so amazing because I don't think any of us would have been able to really get through that whole thing without the support of one another.
You mentioned the cons. Do you enjoy doing the cons and meeting the fans?
I've actually only been to Morphicon so far, but that was so awesome, and nobody really knew who we were just yet, so we didn't even get to meet many fans, but I am so looking forward to more cons and hoping to go and, definitely face-to-face interact with the fans because, I get to communicate with them on my posts and some of them personal message me and such, but to actually kind of put a face to the Instagram user would be awesome and really get to interact would be cool.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but they came out with action figures too, right?
Yes, they did actually.
Yeah. How exciting was it that they made an action figure with your character?
That was mind-blowing, especially all these lightning action figures that are coming out with their actual faces. It's one of those things that, you dream about that, and you wonder what it would be like to go to the store and buy, a miniature version of yourself. It's insane, and, it's definitely special. I know my parents, between my parents, my grandparents, and I think we're stocked up, and I'll definitely have things to look back at when I'm older and maybe have kids of my own to play with the action figure.
That's awesome. Now this gets filmed in New Zealand, right?
Yes.
Yeah. How awesome is it filming in New Zealand? And how long are you there for?
Yeah. What better place to film it? No matter what, you can't complain about anything because you're literally in the most beautiful place in the world. It was literally like Jurassic Park mixed with Jumanji, mixed with obviously Lord of the Rings. It was so crazy how beautiful that place was. But we were there for 9 months, so I consider New Zealand like my second home now because I miss it so much every day. It's definitely a really special place.
When you go in there again to start the next season?
I don't know. Hopefully,
that's right. Yeah.
Back.
Yeah. Hopefully everything will settle down in a few months.
Yeah.
So, in the acting world, who do you think has been your influence that you look up to?
There's been a lot. In the sort of drama action side, when I was growing up, I loved Julie Andrews, Sandra Bullock, and Speed. I loved Meryl Streep, obviously. Mamma Mia's a huge favorite of mine. But I also, the comedic side that I talked about was Jim Carrey, Robin Williams, Dick Van Dyke. I loved Chitty Chitty Bang Bang growing up.
That's awesome.
And yeah. So I don't know, all of those kind of combined, and there's just, I mean, even more nowadays, like with Margot Robbie, she's a huge inspiration. I think all of her, Tanya was amazing, and even, you know, her character work is so awesome and inspiring. So definitely all of those just kind of, over the years, really influenced me, and I still look up to them, and fingers crossed in the universe that maybe I get to work with some of them one day.
Do you have like a dream role that you want to play someday?
Oh, yes. So I have 3. So Mamma Mia would be one. Jason Bourne, a.k.a. Jackie Bourne, would be another huge dream of mine. And then to be Jim Carrey in The Mask is
awesome.
The third one.
Yeah.
And then obviously a Marvel DC movie. Those are also like amazing and insane if I got to be in one of those as well.
So what do you think is next? What's coming up next for you in 2020? Any other projects?
You know, there's actually a few things on hold right now because of, you know, obviously everything going on. But I definitely have been auditioning. There's a few, I have a movie coming out in September that I just did, a Lifetime movie. So really excited about that. And then, you know, I'm staying busy. I'm working on things so that, you know, once everything does calm down and everybody's safe and healthy and everything's back to somewhat of a normal, that I'm prepared and kind of just jump right back in with everything. So, yeah, I think there's a few cool things coming up for me.
Yeah.
So,
like on your downtime, what do you when you're not working? What do you enjoy doing?
I am a huge dancer. I also have like this shelf of my tricks. I have a blue afro, I have a kazoo, I have a tie. I like to make funny videos and dance around my apartment. So that's kind of like, that's like my go-to.
Yeah. All right. Lastly, how can the listeners find you on social media?
So my Instagram is just my full name, Jacqueline Scislowski. And then my TikTok is Jacqueline Scislow. So just my full name minus the T at the end of my last name. And then I'm on Twitter, which is J and then Scislowski.
All right.
So,
Jacqueline, this was great. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much. This is awesome.
That's a wrap. That's a wrap, everybody. That's a wrap.
Thanks for listening to the Man Cave Chronicles podcast.
I finally get my man cave.
You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at the MCC Podcast and our website, themccpodcast.com. Until next time.